All right, here we go. Can you guys hear me? All right, here we go. Can you guys hear me? All right, sounds good. Looks good. Um, let's get right into it, man. College football playoff rankings. I couldn't do one of these last week. Sorry, we're starting a little late, but here we go. I'm just going to go through. Let's mute that and go through and look at this video, man, and look at the rankings, see how they kind of reveal them and everything. Let's skip the preamble, but we got a new 12 team playoff, five highest ranked conference champs, and then the next, what is it, seven highest ranked teams in there. Then the top four will get buys. Eight teams in the first round. Man, the whole home game thing is going to be so cool. I can't wait to see. I really want to see a game in Happy Valley for Penn State. I really want to see, some big time environments. Maybe we'll get an Ohio State one. Maybe we'll get an Alabama home game. Whatever, a Oregon home game. We'll see. But here we go. Tulane jumps into number 25, 8-2. They're having a pretty good season over there in the AAC. Jumps in from not ranked. Army will go up one spot after their, grinded out victory. It was like 14-3. But honestly, I think they should be way higher. You're 9-0, man. You're 9-0. I know their schedule is weak, but come on. Missouri, again, I don't think should even be in the top 25. I would rather put 2-loss or 3-loss Vanderbilt in there over Missouri. I know Missouri beat Vanderbilt, but nonetheless, LSU goes down 7 spots to number 22. They do stay over Missouri, and then South Carolina moving way up to number 21. That was big for them. I do want to pause and go over really quick. Let's see. I want to just look at the games from last week, just to get refreshers and everything. Yeah, top 25 is fine, but I'm trying to remember. Trying to just go through here of all the. Maybe let's just do FBS. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, we're back. Let's go. All right, so that's 25 through 21. I'm sure some teams dropped out of those rankings. I don't know it off the top of my head, but we can look back over for teams that dropped out, because we got Tulane from not ranked and South Carolina jumping all the way to number 21 on not ranked. Clemson moving up after their loss. They move up 3 spots to number 20. Skip this ad, but Clemson, that loss to Louisville really hurts. It really hurts their chances, and really the ACC completely losing at this point with the Miami loss to Georgia Tech. Louisville moving up a few spots there. They're 6-3. Wonder what the highest 3-loss team will be. It might even be Louisville. We'll have to check and see. Washington State, number 18. Let's say they end up like 11-1. Where is the committee going to rank them? I don't know if they'll make it into the 12-team playoff at that point, just because their schedule is pretty weak. But Colorado moves up 3 spots. They're at number 17 now. Colorado, what a turnaround there from Deion Sanders. You remember, bro was getting clowned. I mean, let's not act like we were all just clowning him last year, and he's completely turned around. And you look at the haters, they're pretty silent for sure right now. So Colorado, I guess they're talking a lot about Colorado. Kansas State moving in to number 16. Kansas State, another kind of contender there in the Big 12. Big 12 obviously has been so wild, so wild. I predicted Colorado to be a 6-win, 7-win team, and look, they're already 7-2. They could be a 10-win team, which is just crazy to think about. I'll be interested to see how high a BYU and an Iowa State are. Texas A&M going down a spot there. I want to look at them. Maybe we should go to the top 25. Just be easier to. Did they have a bye week? I forget now. Why am I forgetting? Where are they? Yeah, they had a bye week. That's why. Yeah, and then the last week, obviously, losing right after I did a video about them. So that's 19. Why can't I say 19? 19 through 15. I think the really interesting one is Washington State. Let's say they go to 11-1. Can they sneak into that top 12 area? That will be very interesting to see. And then obviously Big 12 is very wild. We'll see how that all pans out. And Louisville with that win over Clemson is big. Now, this is interesting. So they go into the top 12 teams. SMU is the second team out. So it looks like they're number 14. They rank them number 14. Boise State is number 13 in the college football playoff rankings. They get the first round, number 12. They're the number 12 team. Makes sense. SMU, ACC. So they're on track for a match against Miami if Miami doesn't fold anymore. But SMU could be that as ACC champ, which would be kind of crazy to think. Like, would they put a SMU or Boise State ahead, whichever, and then you could get an SMU in the quarterfinals immediately? Like, that would be kind of crazy, big surprise. People thought they were going to be pretty good this year, but college football playoff worthy, like, whoa, that's very interesting. And we'll see how it all pans out. So now this gets interesting. Where do they rank your Alabamas? Where do you rank your Miamis? So Georgia looks like they're number 12 after their loss. So Georgia going down to number 12 after their loss. Going over to the scores here. That was a pretty brutal one to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is going to be ranked ahead of them, 2-loss to 2-loss, and Georgia is in some serious trouble. Obviously, you look at them here; they are the first team out. So if the if the season were to end today, Georgia is out of the playoff. They really have no more margin for error, and just like that, when we thought Ole Miss was totally out of it. They are right back into the playoff picture. They're doing a little thing on Georgia here. Yeah. Okay. We don't need to see that. Okay. So moving on, hopefully here. That Georgia loss to Ole Miss was very surprising. Ole Miss is number 11. So Ole Miss will move in number 11. So they move into that college football playoff. A very impressive win, probably the best win in the Lane Kiffin era. Needed a big kind of, almost I'd say legacy win. You beat Georgia. That is a big deal. It's, would they have liked to not lose to your like Kentucky's or whatever? Yes, but they have a chance to really control their own destiny a bit here and possibly end up in the playoff, which is kind of crazy to think about. This 12-team playoff is just for the teams like Ole Miss who lose too, but they're still a really good team, and maybe they can dance in this new playoff format, see what they can do, win a road game, then go into the quarterfinals. Then it's all neutral site fields, and who knows what happens then. So Ole Miss number 11. Let's move along here, guys. I guess they got a lot to talk about with Ole Miss, with Georgia. So Alabama is number 10. Alabama keeps chugging along, another two-loss SEC team. You go over here, Alabama they weren't on a bye week, were they? No, they weren't. Yeah, the LSU, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, they dominated LSU. So Alabama has been very up and down this season. Really, all the SEC teams, it's been a bloodbath. I called it, honestly. It was going to be a bloodbath. What I didn't call was Georgia being out of the playoff. But all these other teams, for sure, all beating up on each other. So Miami drops down to, this is interesting. They are number 9 in the college football playoff rankings, but they get the automatic 4 bid. So they will be at number 4 after that loss to Georgia Tech, which looked pretty bad. I understand moving them down to number 9. That's about right. They're a 1-loss team, still power conference ACC. So, but I put ACC and Big 12 on about the same tier, maybe ACC lower. I don't know. And then SEC and Big 10. Even big. You look at Big 10. Kind of crazy. They're going through these rankings here. So we got, it looks like number 9 is Notre Dame. That one loss to Texas A&M is, or no, not the one loss to Texas A&M. The one loss to Northern Illinois is slowly kind of fading out of our minds, right? And they just keep on winning. Tennessee, who I've been about, they keep on winning too. You go over to the scores here. Where were they? I saw, Mississippi State, which is a team they were supposed to beat, handled them. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay. They got big matches coming up. They beat Alabama, which was a huge win, and now they have Georgia next week, I believe, right? I want to double check that. They have Georgia this next week, which is going to be huge game at Georgia. I'm picking Georgia, which would just make the SEC even more chaotic, the college football playoff even more chaotic for the committee. Like, where do we rank all them? But Tennessee has a chance to be, do a big time statement game, and really prove doubters kind of like me wrong. And Georgia's fighting for their playoff lives in that one. I expect Georgia to win that, but we'll see. BYU comes in at number 6 in the playoff rankings, and then number 3. They have been very impressive. They had the comeback win against Utah. Complete collapse from Utah. They were up 21-10 at halftime, and BYU was able to fight back. Did they have kind of some favorable calls? Yes, but nevertheless, they've been able to fight, and look at them. They're 9-0. That's what you got to do as a team to get in the playoff. You got to get a little lucky, and you just got to be good. And they have been both. And they're number 3 in the quarterfinals, so they would play the winner of Ole Miss and who knows, Miami would play Boise State or whoever. But yeah, BYU has been a big surprise in the Big 12. Look, I guess Iowa State completely dropped out, if I'm not mistaken. We'll go back over to see the full list. But Indiana is number 5 now. They are 10-0. They have the matchup with Ohio State coming up. That is going to be huge. And you look at the Big Ten. The Big Ten has been phenomenal. You got a lot of teams just with 1 loss or undefeated over there in the Big Ten. You got Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. You could make an argument those are the 4 best team, hypothetically. Interestingly, Texas is still ranked pretty high. That Texas win over, the Texas wins, and they only got 1 loss against Georgia. So they keep on winning. I think they have a bye. I want to check with them. I think they beat Florida handily. So they did what they were supposed to do. So yeah, Indiana would be playing Alabama if this all ended. And think about that. Like, you get a matchup at Indiana, Bama versus Indiana. I might like Indiana in that one. Ole Miss and Penn State. I love that matchup. For you look at the past for the 14 playoff. It seemed like Ole Miss and Penn State were always just kind of barely out of it because they could not win all the way, win their conference, whatever. And you got Penn State and Ole Miss right there, and then winner would play BYU. Penn State, their only loss being to Ohio State. They are, I honestly, it's honestly like, yes, they have a pretty good loss against Ohio State. But I don't know. Indians won all their games, guys. I know their schedule is very weak, but come on. Texas coming in at number 3. I think they are leaders of the SEC right now, which is a stacked, chaotic conference. So I understand that a little bit. But hey, they are the highest, or no, they're not the highest one-loss team. Ole Miss, or sorry, Ohio State is. But Texas one loss coming to Georgia, which is number 12 in the rankings. Number 2, Ohio State. You think about this. Ohio State, committee ranks Ohio State as the number 2 team in the country. And then Oregon, obviously, number 1. You look at Ohio State, they are ranked as the number 2 team in the country, which I agree with. They had a very close loss against Oregon, and they have taken care of business. The matchup with Indiana is going to be huge. But they're the number 2 team in the country, but they get number 5 in the college football playoffs simply because of the championship game factor, which is going to be very interesting to see how that pans out. I honestly, we'll see. Like Indiana and Ohio State is basically going to be a Big Ten championship elimination game almost. Winner of that basically probably gets to the Big Ten championship. Oregon, if they can maintain being steady, win the Washington game, they'll be undefeated. But I wouldn't automatically pick Oregon against Ohio State or even Indiana. But you look at the Big Ten, top 5 teams. They have 4 of the top 5 teams. The Big Ten has been very impressive this year. They're very top heavy, obviously. But those top teams have been the top teams, and they've been able to take care of business. And then you got Texas there sneaking in at number 3. So I want to go over here this week 10 here. I'll reload this just to double check. Yeah. So here are the rankings. I didn't see. Yeah. So here are the rankings. Let's see, highest 3-loss team looks like Louisville, interestingly enough, after the win over Clemson. Okay. I'm partial to Vanderbilt because I just kind of like Vanderbilt with their upsets over, your Bamas. I think Army is still too low at 24. You got to bump them up. A bit against over all these teams. I keep going. Maybe you can put them in this conversation with Boise State and SMU, probably like at 15 or something. But that Georgia loss really hurts, dude. It really, really hurts Georgia, that loss right there. Look at the 2 teams they lost to, Bama and Mississippi. Holding them back down at number 12. And that number 12 is not going to be good enough because Boise State is there and they'd get the automatic bid. Notre Dame's sitting here. They'll be interesting. Like, you look at all the top teams. Obviously, you got to say at this point, I say Oregon, they got to be the favorites at this point. They beat the number 2 team in the country, making them number 1. They have dominated basically everyone else. That Big 10 championship is going to be very interesting. You look at, you could play a scenario. Okay, let's say Ohio State beats Indiana, which they'll be favored. Indiana's like a 1-loss. Oregon would go to like number 5, and they play probably Boise State again, which would be kind of interesting. You'd put Ohio State at number 1. They could eventually meet in the semifinals and have a third matchup. How crazy would that be with Oregon and Ohio State? And that third matchup would be the ultimate, who's the best, and the winner of that probably wins the national championship in my eyes. But it's still very, crazy how, you have no idea what Bama is going to show up. Is it going to be the Bama versus LSU, or is it going to be the Bama versus Vanderbilt? You have no idea with Bama. If they start getting on a hot streak, Jalen Milroe starts getting on a hot streak, you have no idea what they could blow through. You look at what Ole Miss did to Georgia and you say, oh, whoa. That Ole Miss team, if that Ole Miss team shows up, oh man. You look at a Penn State. Penn State having a home game in Happy Valley. That's pretty big advantage. And, they're a very good team. You look at the committee, ranks them number 4. Notre Dame, who's on a hot streak after that early loss. Same with Boise State, man. They could come in there and pull the upset. Very, very interesting. Out of the top 4 teams here, Texas is going a little under the radar. After that Georgia loss, people were like, oh, okay, let's bring Texas back down. They were the number 1 team, obviously. But they are still right there, man. And I want to look at the SEC standings to finish this off, because the SEC may probably go into the Big Ten as well. But the SEC is so insane, bro. So, looking here, right now, the conference championship game would be Tennessee and Texas A&M. You look at Texas A&M, they aren't even in this conversation. They're number 15. They're the 3rd team out. They win the conference championship, they get boosted all the way to number 4. That's the beauty of this college football playoff. Then we have Texas there, so they probably play Texas A&M coming their last game. That Texas A&M Texas game is going to be good, man. That one's going to be good. I expect Texas to win out here. Besides the Georgia game where the offense was a disaster and that Georgia defense looked like the old Georgia defense, they have been very good. Yes, has their schedule been pretty easy? Yeah. But it's always tough to win at Michigan, no matter what Michigan team it is. They beat a pretty good Vanderbilt team, and everyone else they have completely blown out. So that Texas A&M, it's going to be at Kyle Field. That one, I think game day has to be there. If Texas A&M keeps winning, which we'll check their schedule. New Mexico State and Auburn, oh, those are gimmies, dude. Oh, dude, like, yeah, sure, Georgia, you can beat Tennessee. I really want it to be Texas A&M, Texas for the SEC title and for the bye. That would be Texas A&M, Texas for whoever goes to the SEC championship game, which then might be another rematch. I don't know. Maybe then we would have a Georgia or a Tennessee. But you look at like a team like Bama, they just gotta hope that they get into one of these at-large spots at this point, because they are sitting at number 6 in the SEC. Like, there's not really any hope for them to climb back into this thing, given that they lost to Ole Miss and Georgia. Sorry, they beat Georgia. But they lost to Ole Miss, and then they lost to Vanderbilt, who's down here. Finally, I want to go over to the Big Ten. So Indiana and Oregon at the top. Ohio State, not really any room for error. They have Indiana coming up. That one's going to be whoever wins that one is probably going to have a date with Oregon in the Big Ten championship, given that Oregon, they beat at Wisconsin, which could be an upset trap. That one could be an upset trap. They got to beware. And then Washington, who is always going to play them tough. Oregon better be on their high alert, because Oregon, even have one of those losses. Yeah, they get back in the Big Ten championship, but then, you lose that. You're looking at 2 losses. Now you're down here in the mud. Do you even get a home playoff game? You just win your conference, you're good. And then I think that's what's very interesting with a team like a Texas A&M, who already has 2 losses, but one of their losses was to Notre Dame, so they only have 1 loss in conference, and they could, show out and win the SEC title and get a bye. That would be very impressive. So at this point, Penn State is basically just banking on an at-large spot, because you look at what's in front of them. They have Minnesota and Maryland. There's no way they can really make it up, and at Purdue too. There's no way they can make it up. You know what I'm saying? So they just gotta hope. They already lost to Ohio State. They kind of gotta hope that Oregon and Indiana just fumble away their last 2 games. Both teams fumble both games, then they could have a rematch with Ohio State, but that's pretty unlikely. But you see what I was saying with top heavy. Like, these are the only top 25 Big Ten teams. They're very top heavy. Everyone else is mid. Let's go to that crazy Big 12. For right now, Iowa State losing. It looks like Colorado and BYU are in it. Hey, Arizona State still kind of in the race, which is awesome. Who do they got left? They got Kansas State and they got BYU. Arizona State could control their own destiny, man. They could go out there and get a W, bro. They could go out there, win these final 3 games, and they're right in there. They win a Big 12 championship. All of a sudden, you're looking at Arizona State, bro. All of a sudden, you're looking at Arizona State in the college football playoff. I don't want to get myself too ahead of myself, but my goodness. The way that BYU and Colorado have been playing lately, though, they're definitely the top 2 Big 12 teams. You look at collapses of Utah, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Kansas. These were all teams that were supposed to be near the top, and they have completely collapsed. Crazy, dude. Finally, let's go over the ACC. We'll do the AAC. ACC, SMU. What is this? Their first or second year in the ACC? I forget, but they are top of the conference now. The last undefeated team in conference play. So it looks like Clemson is technically ahead of Miami. The fact that Clemson and Miami don't play each other is stupid. But that loss to Louisville obviously hurting, but they can fight their way back into it, looks like. And Miami, they're down. Ugh. That a loss that late in the season. Ugh. But so right now it looks like, I don't know how they kind of separate it, but if they both win out, maybe Clemson is getting in the ACC title game, and then Miami is subjected back here. And then you got SMU, Clemson for the bye, and Louisville kind of putting themselves in that race. Finally, the American Army and Tulane, both undefeated in the American, not getting a ton of respect at 24-25. Obviously, the American Conference not that great, but we have Memphis. I was hoping they would be able to maybe get in, but it's looking kind of unlikely now. And then finally, I want to go to the Mountain West. It was looking like for a second there, UNLV maybe, but look at Colorado State, man. They're 4-0. Do they play Boise State? They don't. So you look at Colorado State. They have 3 losses, but they're undefeated. All their losses are out of conference. They got these last conference games. They control their destiny. They could kind of spoil it for Boise State. That would probably put in a Army, which would be so sick to see that, bruh. An Army in the college football playoff. Okay, I think that's gonna do it for these college football playoff rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more live reactions and podcasts like these. Sorry, I couldn't do like an official podcast this last week. I was out of town, but look for one this next week. It is getting intense, man. It is getting intense. You look at these teams. Who would have thought you would see Georgia out of the playoff, man? This SEC is crazy. It has been a wild year. You got surprise teams like Indiana and BYU. Crazy time right now. So make sure to subscribe for more college football content, edits, and podcasts, all that. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.